My name is Northampton Mayor David Narkowitz, and welcome to the Mayor's Report. The Mayor's Report is a show that we've put together so that I can try to communicate with members of the public about some of the issues and projects that we're working on here in the city. Before we start this episode, I want to just take a moment to pay tribute to someone who was very instrumental in creating this Mayor's Report. We've only done one episode of the Mayor's Report, which some of you may remember was a tour of the police station back in the summer. And that program would not have been possible without the creative talents of Carl Russo. Sadly, Carl passed away since that episode, and I just want to pay tribute to him and to all the contributions that he made, not only to NCTV, but to our entire community. Thank you, Carl, and my condolences go out to your family. This episode, I want to focus on economic development. Economic development was one of the big focuses of my campaign for mayor, and it's very important not only in terms of helping to create our local economy, to create jobs and economic opportunity, but it's also important in terms of how we build our tax base locally so that we can continue to provide the services to our community, whether it's police, fire, DPW, and maintaining our great schools. So it's been something that I've been focusing on since I became mayor. And today I want to take the opportunity to introduce you to our city's new economic development director. Some of you may recall that when I first became mayor, the city's previous director of economic development left in March, and I took some time to really reevaluate the position and made some organizational changes in terms of how our economic development position was structured, and then went out and did a search, national search, worked with my Economic Development Advisory Commission, and I'm really proud to introduce today Terry Masterson, who is someone that we've just hired as Economic Development Director. He's literally on his second week on the job. He comes to us with over 2 decades worth of economic development experience, including working in Westchester County and most recently as the Executive Director of the Cayuga County Economic Development Agency. So welcome, Terry, to Northampton. And why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yep. Thank you very much for that nice introduction. I'm very happy to be here. I have been in economic development, as you noted, since I started in 1989, and I worked for Westchester County Economic Development for that period of time. And then, as you noted, from 2010, over the past 3 years, I worked in economic development in Cayuga County, which is upstate New York near Syracuse. And prior to that, I had the opportunity to work for several Fortune corporations as a pension and benefits administrator. So I think I bring a little private sector experience as well as public sector experience to the position. And I also want to say how flattered and honored I am to have this position. I'm very excited to be here. I think this is a really beautiful city. I'm so impressed every time I wake up and drive around and see all the vitality and the energy that this city has on so many levels, from workforce to arts to culture to education. It's really an impressive place, and I speak to that coming from a community in Westchester County called Irvington, New York, which also on a much smaller scale had many of those elements as well. And I also sense here a very strong sense of civic engagement on behalf of the citizenry, and I think that's highly impressive as well. So I look forward to working with you and the council and the citizens in the community to deliver an economic development base that we want to have. And I totally support your thoughts that economic development is not just jobs, it's quality of life, and it's also improving the tax base so that we have a fair level of taxation for the services, whether it's education or municipal services that we need. So economic development is almost a table with many chairs. It's not just jobs, although jobs is definitely an important part of this as well.
And you've already hit the ground running. I know we've been to several meetings already in the area. We've met with folks at the chamber. We've just came back from a regional gaming meeting yesterday, and I know that you're going to be going out around the community to talk to business owners, to get sort of the lay of the land, if you will. And one of the other pieces that we'll be working together on is the new Economic Development Advisory Commission, which, as you know, is a body that's comprised of people that are in the business community from different sectors of the business community. And one of my goals for that commission is to provide a sounding board to the work that we do, trying to promote economic development in the city, but also helping craft sort of a strategy for economic development. And I know you have some experience in that, if you wanted to comment on that.
One of the interesting experiences I had in Cayuga County was to put together their first strategic plan for economic development since 1999. And we worked with some consultants to do that. And while that was a county-wide effort, I think it's definitely a good exercise, and I'm sure the commission will be helping with this, for people to define in many ways, it could be formal or informal, to define how they see the city and where they want to see the city go, so that the economic development arm is fulfilling that vision. And everybody has a chance to contribute and share what they'd like to see as valuable things to do for the city's future. So yeah, I think the strategic plan process was definitely very healthy. Any process, I think for me, particularly coming into the position, to be able to go out and meet as many people as I can, meet as many businesses, and then try to cull together what we think people see the city as will be very, very fun, a lot of fun and very positive.
Definitely, and obviously one of the other roles that we want to play is we oftentimes have businesses contact us who are interested in coming to the city. I think we've already had one of those calls since you've been here.
Yes.
And so I think one of the things we want to do together, I know, is sort of put together a toolbox, if you will, that we can be able to talk to communities, talk to prospective companies about what we offer here. And I know you've talked about putting together some information on economic indicators about the city, and so that we can begin to present that information.
We have worked in the past to try to provide businesses, whether it's a startup or an entrepreneur, or whether it's a business of retail, or whether it's a residential developer, or whether it's a light industrial manufacturer, the ability to convey to them what is the economic conditions in the area, what is the cost of doing business, and also what are the services and potential incentives that might exist as well, and to present that to the business almost in a one-stop format, so they're not compelled to go in different directions for all that information. And then as a potential project moves along, you work with them through the process and help them get to the end, hopefully, which is the completion of a good project.
Well, you're definitely arriving at a pretty exciting time. We've got a lot of, there's been a lot of momentum this year. We've have several big projects happening in our King Street area, including the long dormant Price Chopper complex, which we visited, which is now undergoing kind of a rebirth, if you will. We've just last week I had the opportunity to stop in and visit the new Greenfield Savings Bank that just opened. They're about to announce a major lease signing with Bay State Health Systems. Village Hill, which we've also been up visiting, is constructing its first commercial business up on the North Campus. So there's definitely a lot of momentum, and I think that we want to try to build on that and sort of keep that buzz going about Northampton being a great place to come, to work, to live, to do business.
I think it's really terrific to see the diversity of the development projects or potentials or plans that we see out there, and touching on so many areas of the economy: residential, retail, light industry, hotels. It's just a tremendously healthy and positive mix for any community to have, and hopefully we're going to be able to continue to incentivize that and help that along and facilitate it and accelerate it, so we move forward with that kind of momentum. Because as we've seen the economy in the past several years, we've seen it sort of fall and then stabilize, and now it's apparently trying to climb back, and we want to do all that we can to keep that going, definitely.
And one of the other things I think that makes Northampton unique, including just regionally, locally, is we do have a really strong core of local businesses, local restaurants, local hardware stores, local bookshops, things that have been lost in many other parts of the country. So I know one of the other priorities is to really make sure that we nurture and cultivate those and be available to help them with the challenges that they face day to day in their businesses, because that is, I think, one of the other unique aspects. And you touched on it, our arts and culture. which we've sort of become an arts and culture destination. And I know you have some experience with that in your previous job.
Yeah. Locally grown businesses are extremely important and they're extremely exciting. And I did a lot of work with entrepreneurs and startups in Cayuga County. I helped administer a small business loan program in Westchester County. Locally grown businesses generate locally grown dollars that stay in the community, and that creates an accelerator where it goes from vendor to vendor. And there's a lot of good economic thinking about that kind. And I think it's very, very positive for, again, the community and its economic health. So I think, yes, that's definitely positive.
And we also have we're also quite fortunate to live in an area with 5 colleges nearby, so we have a highly educated workforce. And I know workforce development is an area that you focused on in your previous jobs, and I think it's also vital here in the Valley. Do you have thoughts about workforce development? And
as our economy becomes more intellectually focused, education becomes more and more critically important. As manufacturing and light industry becomes more advanced, again, education and workforce training really becomes more critical. So to have the educational foundation that this region and Northampton has, to me, is also a tremendous asset in helping businesses find the talent they need. You also have an entire niche of our economy where people are working off of their intellectual skills, and their ability to be connected to educational resources is also important. So again, there's a multitude of assets and benefits within this area to help grow jobs in the economy, and that's definitely one of them as well, yes.
And a sort of a tie-in to that, of course, the Knowledge Corridor is a big project that sort of plays a little bit on that, and that involves the return of rail to Northampton. Now, you recently, one of your first tasks when you, in the last week or so, was to attend a meeting, represent Northampton at a meeting discussing the Knowledge Corridor project, which is steadily advancing. The tracks are being repaired north of us. Next year they'll begin repairing the tracks to return that rail service. What's your impression of that initiative and the importance that it could have for Northampton?
The study that's going on in the meeting that I attended is to try to study the coming entrance of the Amtrak service, the Vermonter, which will come through Northampton on its way south, I believe twice a day, and then upward to 3 times a day. And the study is also analyzing the potential of extending commuter rail as well. And rail would provide another way for long distance travel and people to come and visit, obviously. The Amtrak, making Northampton an Amtrak stop almost becomes a subliminal form of advertising and marketing the city as well, because you're becoming a national rail station. So I think all that is also another asset on top of many. It's almost like to look forward to as we try to grow the economy in the months ahead, years ahead, for that to be more accurate.
The other issue that you sort of have walked into here is casino gaming, which Massachusetts passed an expanded gaming law at the end of last year, and we're now involved in a process, including here in Western Massachusetts, where there's a process underway where in Palmer and in Springfield there are developers that are looking to put together applications for gaming licenses. I've expressed some concerns publicly about that just because of what we've created here in Northampton locally. I know you and I just attended a regional meeting yesterday in West Springfield, which was a group of regional leaders trying to put together kind of a regional response to coming up with potential impacts. And I know that this is also an area, having been in New York State, where you've sort of followed some of the casino developments and some of the potential pitfalls that we'll need to be looking out for as a community. Did you want to talk just briefly about what you've seen as that industry has moved around New York State area and New Jersey, et cetera?
I think it's great that the region is coming together to try to address the issue in advance and early on, and try to plan for what will be the impacts of casino. There are obviously clearly some positives, and there are also areas of concern as well. And I think to study it on a regional level will be very, very important and worthwhile. We want to have, again, we just returned to, you and I were just discussing the impact of a locally based economy with locally grown businesses generating dollars amongst themselves. Clearly, one concern of casinos can be that it's often a larger organization that comes in and builds a standalone facility, and those dollars then go to that standalone facility. So I think you've already started to see conversations in our region about making sure that any casino solution includes many different local connections to make sure that those dollars are still staying here and circulating and being used. So that's one concern I think we would want to have an awareness of as we go forward.
And you know, I have concerns just about dilution. You know, the diluting effects of building. You know, there's partially this has been in response to the success of casinos in Connecticut, and I think Massachusetts is now trying to respond to that. And I also think one of the things that I'm hopeful that the Gaming Commission will look at is where they're locating these facilities, and that we're not sort of creating competing entities, or where we're going to have the same group of people being spread among multiple more facilities.
Yeah, I think that when we look on the Eastern Seaboard today, it's become very common knowledge that the Atlantic City casino base has been diluted by the Connecticut casinos, and now Maryland is opening itself up to gaming and table games and other forms of gambling, and that's going to dilute the market that runs into West Virginia. So I think we do need to be concerned about where casinos are situated, and at what geographic range are they competitive, and at what geographic range do they then start to take away from one another, and then we could end up with some diminished assets, and we don't want that to happen either.
Definitely, definitely, and I know that the Gaming Commission has been having hearings about some of these issues, and I think one of the things that people have been a little bit confused about is, you know, they're already in Western Massachusetts, we're seeing commercials for casinos. You know, MGM and Penn National are you know, running ads and internet ads and things like that. And this is a long process. Right now, there's sort of a process that will conclude on January 15th, which is the phase 1 portion, which is really just developers reaching an agreement with a host community so that they can file a phase 1 application. That phase 1 application will basically be a background check, if you will. Phase 2 is when we get into the whole issue of impacts on surrounding communities. And interestingly, the commission hasn't even written the regulations yet that even defines what those what a surrounding community is. I think, you know, obviously we had a brief two-week discussion about a potential Holyoke casino, which is no longer in play. But I think one of the things we'll be looking at very closely in Northampton is even a Springfield casino. What will be the effects on Northampton? Even though we aren't geographically contiguous to them, you know, my argument would be that, you know, we have a very robust entertainment industry here. We have a very robust retail and arts economy here, and so anytime something happens, you know, again, we're 16, 18 miles away, that's going to have an impact. And I know one of the things I'm going to be pressing for is, have you studied what the potential impacts are on us, and what efforts are you going to do to mitigate that? So that, again, we don't have a situation where you know, a company comes in, sucks all the discretionary income out of the region, and then it gets shipped off to investors somewhere else, as opposed to the model we've created in Northampton, which is, you know, local businesses, local dollars that are getting spread throughout the local economy, and really building something that's sustainable. So that's going to be one of the tasks that we'll be working on ahead. And also, I think we're going to continue to work nurturing some of the projects we talked about earlier in the show.
I think your comments are spot on. I think that we see, again, if we look at the Eastern Seaboard, the construction of casinos in isolated areas near highways that have no downtown impacts and have no positive contributions. We know that gaming jobs are not high-paying jobs, they're not high-value jobs, and when we now see casinos being permitted all across the Northeast, we're going to really have to worry about letting these casinos be built, and then maybe 5 years or 6 years they hollowed out and their employment then declines, and we've made all these investments what will we have gained at the end of the day, instead of trying to grow real value and real jobs in a real economy. And that starts with downtowns that have assets that draw people who want to live there, who want to buy homes, who want to go to the schools and make the school system strong. Economic activity is a system that feeds all forms of our society, and a strong economy that's locally based and driven with arts and culture and education, and trying to drive a good residential base, that then drives a good retail base, and then I think you have a strong economy. Large big box casinos are not the way to build an economy. No question they have certain assets, but we have to really, unfortunately, having this presented to us on a state level, have to really look at it very, very, very carefully and scrutinize it.
One of the other projects that you've had a chance to look at since arriving is the construction of a new hotel, which is going to be on Conn Street, and it's being built and proposed by the current owner of the Hotel Northampton. I know you had a chance to meet with him and talk about his plans. And
yes.
How important do you think it is I know hotels are, when you have a destination and you try to create tourism opportunities, how important is it to have a hotel like that, these additional rooms being built? I know you talked with Mansour Ghalibaf, the owner, and had a chance to meet with him. Just curious about your impressions of that project.
I had a lovely meeting with Mansour, and I would, again, you mentioned that they're locally based developers and locally based businessmen, and Mansour fits that modicum. He loves being here, he's very loyal to the area, and the idea that he's going to be able to help us sponsor a new hotel for the city, I think is hugely exciting. And as I've mentioned before, we often look at a hotel and we think, oh, it's just a bunch of hotel rooms and people come and visit and that's okay, and you drive by it. But what you have to really think about is that through the course of a year, there are going to be thousands of people visiting this city, and they're going to be spending money at restaurants and shops and other types of stores, and they're going to be leaving money behind that wasn't here the week before or the month before, and the economic value of that's going to be enormous for Northampton. And I think it's a tremendous compliment to the city that the Marriott chain is making this commitment as well, where I've worked in regions where you have to beg the Marriott chain to come to your area. I think it's a high compliment that this project is moving along the way it is. Mm-hmm.
Definitely, and so we're excited about that, and also, in addition to all the things you talked about, there's also hotel and motel taxes, which provide additional local revenue to the city,
yes.
Which differentiates a hotel from some of the other businesses. So it's a very high value, and again, I thank Mr. Ghalibaf for the investment that he's making in the community. I know last night was the planning board meeting, and they did receive approvals for that, and so he will be moving forward with the construction of that. So I look forward to seeing that new facility come online. So it's great to have you joining us. I know it's only been 2 weeks on the job. It's already been a whirlwind for you, but I'm really looking forward to having you lend your expertise to my administration and working with you to try to work. We hear the term economic development tossed around a lot, but really it's about helping build and support the community, build the local economy, and again be able to maintain the services that we rely on by having a stable and growing tax base. So I'm excited to be able to introduce you, and I know that you'll be getting out around the community to introduce
Definitely.
yourself to the community. And I want to thank people for tuning in to the Mayor's Report, and I want to thank especially Al Williams, the Executive Director of Northampton Community Television, for working with me to try to kind of pick up the show again, and we're going to try to repurpose it and reformat it and keep it moving forward, and try to bring to you future episodes where we can talk about other issues affecting the community and actually take the show out and around the community to look at some of the things that are going on, some of these projects that we were talking about, and try to create a focus on the work that I'm doing as your mayor. So thank you for tuning in to the Mayor's Report, and I want to also wish the Northampton community happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and a safe and joyful New Year. Thank you.